Hello and welcome. This is Namir with the first of a series of video talks called Mental Yoga, which follow from the method of classical yoga that we should inquire into the nature, the reality of who we are and what is life. So, Svadhyaya, self-inquiry. We have our mind and our brain, and we can use it quite usefully to see clearly who we are. Traditionally, this involved reading the ancient texts written by or about the rishis, the seers. These were people who investigated life by themselves or were given insights from mysterious sources and brought them or shared them with humanity or the people around them. Now, in classical yoga, it was thousands of years ago, and the instruments they had at their perception were generally their own bodies and their own senses. And the people whom they taught were perhaps not as educated or as literate and did not have the information that we do today. However, the reality of the human life is the same. But as we do not speak Sanskrit, we do not have the ancient texts, but we do have our own experience of reality, and we do have fairly detailed experiences or understandings that we have drawn from science recently. So we're going to use those, and our light, which is going to guide us, is basically logic and inference. So not belief, just asking questions and seeing if we can provide answers that and where that takes us to. Now, the first of these videos is actually going to set the scene for where we are now. What is our basic view of life, which hasn't changed much over the thousands of years, that was identified by yoga as avidya, not seeing, avedere, not see, and why that is the case. But first of all, it is useful to describe what is the general view of life today in the world and held by human beings, most human beings, and what the effects of that have been, and why it is necessary to see if that view of life is true or not true. Okay, so the biggest defining paradigm of how we live life mostly would be probably materialism. The idea that matter, stuff, is produces somehow that life arose by chance interactions between lifeless matter that over millions, billions of years developed eventually into life as we know it and our brains and our minds. So in this view, the materialist view, the human being is a small piece in a very big, complicated universe. And that universe doesn't have any sense to it. It just is. And there is no life other than what you can see that are moving creatures that are also each one separated one from the other, little discrete creatures, and you know there is a space between it, and that space is essentially dead, inert. So in this view, you look at yourself and you look at other people and you think, well, I've got to get mine. Okay, if I don't get mine, then they will get theirs. Or you see the world as competition between rivaling living beings. Or even if you are a little bit more developed, you see the world as a cooperation between separate. And this is, as we look at the world, how it seems to be. And in nature, a good deal of cooperation, a little bit of competition. In humanity, perhaps the same, but what you have to do in life is look after yourself, because you are a small little human being in a chaotic, uncaring world that can trip you up and cause you suffering. So it's like we live in a little rowing boat, and we have to be careful, and we're trying to get to paradise by having more and more knowledge, and maybe we join our boats to other boats. We try and see higher, see further, but essentially the world around us has no life in it. Atoms, everything, they're dead. So this is materialism, and materialism tries to understand how consciousness arises, but it cannot yet explain it. Most people believe the material world is true, that what we call solid matter is solid matter. The earth is solid, walls are solid, tables are solid. However, science, the scientists, the people who look much, much closer than most people, will tell you that it actually isn't the case. So even within materialism, true materialism will tell you that the solidity of matter is an illusion. To give you an example, if we know that everything is made up of atoms which come together to build solid objects, but those atoms have a solid bit in the middle called a nucleus, and around them a charge, an energy that nobody knows what it is, but it stops them getting too close, and it also binds them together, made up of electricity, electrons, also mysterious. Now, if an atom's nucleus was the size of my fingertip, then the space that it occupies with its field around it is the size of a football stadium. So the closest that two atoms can get together can be imagined by one little fingertip, or let's say an almond, a peanut, right? And then the distance, half a football stadium, and then another half a football stadium, and then in the center of the two football stadiums, there is a peanut. That is the reality of what we call solid matter. Between those two peanuts is empty space. You could drive a jumbo jet through them. That's what we call empty space. Sorry, that's what we call matter. And as scientists tell you, it's actually empty space. This is one example, just one. And there are many more. And you are invited to ask yourself, is the world as it appears to me to be the case? So the other belief system that most of us hold to, or we're asked to believe, is Darwinism, which is the idea that, again, through chance, blind chance, humanity has developed initially from simple amoebic one-celled living things that somehow became alive, and then gradually along through to become a monkey, and then from a monkey what we call humanity through developing a big brain. This, although in a certain sense is true, it's very hard to actually go back and watch it happening as it happened. But that is the view that we have: materialism and Darwinism. And Darwinism may be understood by most people means, again, survival of the fittest. So competition and adaptation is the natural way. And in competition, it is humanity as a species against other species, and humanity as groups against other groups of humanities, and humanities as individuals against others. So survival of the fittest is the law of the jungle. This kind of idea has seeped into our worldview, and together with materialism brings very strong self-centered me, egoic behavior, and the destruction of nature and the destruction of other peoples. And this is where we are all in this boat now, especially at this time before coronavirus. We were very worried about climate catastrophe created by the human lack of understanding, avidya, of its true nature and its fearful, ignorant hoarding and abuse of nature. We were also fearful of economic collapse for pretty much the same reason, as we have a financial system based upon the hoarding of wealth and greater and greater and greater wealth for fewer and fewer people, and therefore a greater imbalance and share of the resources of the world. And now we have COVID-19, which is bringing the fear into the whole planet. So, and where we could argue whether that's a response of the planet to humanity's destruction of the planet or not, or whether something will continue. Either way, we now are at a point of reflection. You can think, and you have time to think, a pause, say, and hopefully wake up from the dream that affects so many people, not through their own fault. It's just human nature, but we can evolve further. So materialism and Darwinism pretty much rule our world. The materialism of the scientists is a bit different from what is commonly understood as materialism, but it does rule the whole world. And this is where we are, and that would sort of give us the point of departure. What we are going to investigate is, what does materialism mean, and why the world as it appears to you to be is not the world as it is, and what you can know about the world as it is and who you are. So with that, I hope you'll join me for the next lesson, where we will be looking at the nature of light and the world we can experience with our senses. Thank you very much. It's been Namir. It's my pleasure, and hope to see you at the next lesson. Thank you.